Hi guys, and welcome back to Dice Down Gaming. A little primer today before the video. A shout out to Jamie. He's going to be doing a much more in-depth report of all 5 of his games on his podcast, Warmachine Radio, with him and China. I really recommend checking it out. It's fantastic. Great to hear his insights and a good laugh. As well as that, he's going to be putting out some written battle reports of his 5 games with a lot more depth in as well. So keep an eye out for that. I hope you enjoyed the video and see you in the next one. Hi guys, and welcome back to Dice Down Gaming. Today, an extremely special video for the channel. Got 2 absolute legends and heroes with us. The freaking winners of the Warmachine WTC 2025. We've got Chris, Clare and Jamie Perkins. Woo! Absolutely amazing. Thank you for coming on. I'm super grateful. A quick prerequisite for Jamie. Jamie's here today as Jamie Perkins, member of Team England, Warmachine player, not as Steam Force game Jamie. So let's get that out of the way. And the most important question of any of my videos: how are you doing, Chris?
Yeah, really good. Tired, slightly under the weather as a half an hour after a convention and big event, but good, ecstatic.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jamie, how are you, my friend?
Very similar. Still, the thoughts and feelings of the weekend are still sort of sinking in. You're sort of walking around the house earlier today, going, "We won," and it still sort of hits you bit by bit, kind of as what happened. But otherwise, yeah, no, tired, but tired in a way that's like, this is great. I love this. This is fantastic.
A good sort of tired, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So thank you for coming on. You guys are fresh from winning the biggest Warmachine event in the world, so I'm massively grateful for your time. We're going to go a bit around today about how the team was formed, what did that look like, how did your practice look like, because I imagine there was a great deal of it. Then we'll do a bit about the actual event itself, and we'll focus on round 4 and 5 because that was streamed and it was amazing. And then we'll go about the overall elation of winning the event, and we'll look to the future of Warmachine, 2026 WTC and beyond. So the first question to you both is: when did you guys know that Team England Paddington was the 5 players it was going to be?
So I'll probably start with this one. So obviously, captains were picked pretty soon after last year's WTC. So the general, just as a bit of background, how it works is committee is kind of expanded on or decided on after WTC, usually a month, 6 weeks after, to start getting the process and start getting the theory around that. I believe it was just before Christmas that captains were selected. Maybe it was January. And then obviously having that team come together was kind of basically going through multiple different processes of kind of getting the applications in and going through that process. We obviously had it as an open process to start with, saying this is how we'll be going about it, and then each captain would be selecting their team. So I had a core of the team in mind. So there was three people that were kind of cemented in my head as the team, which was a core of last year's team, which was Jamie and Zilla. Nothing's guaranteed. No players guaranteed a spot any WTC application, but obviously we had a good event last year, and then in my mind I was looking for 2 more. So obviously I went through lots of different options. It was such a strong cohort this year, and I ended up with obviously Jacob and Silver by about Jacob and Matt Gallagher by about March-April time. So that does that sound right to you, Jamie? Time frame wise?
It does. Yeah, it does. Yeah, and then just to add a little bit more context to that as well, it's like it's always worth reevaluating the players to see who's kind of performing at any one given time, but also there were some of the notable players like Brett, for example, who played last year, played very, very well, and he just took himself out of the candidacy for the players this year because I think he's studying. He took himself out of studying, playing for the game this year, basically. But there's different reasons why sort of players can cycle in and out of teams from year to year as well.
Yeah, fantastic. That's really interesting. So once you had Paddington formed, was there sort of a practice schedule for the team, or was your team ad hoc sort of practicing, or was there some collaboration with the larger England organisation?
So my general ruling is that I like players to get at least 2 games in a week on average. So on average over a month. So if you go to a big event, play 6 games, that could be majority of your practice for the month. I'm a very data hungry captain, so I'll have all games logged by every teammate. So it starts to help you build a picture of kind of where gaps are forming. and basically practice schedules were built around events and kind of where I was finding weaknesses were coming, trying to get practice games. And yeah, basically just towards the end, obviously the practice changes quite a lot, and trying to get more focused and trying to find areas and weaknesses that we've got in the team.
Yeah, so Jamie, like for example, I saw you asking on War Table, like, did anyone want to play like Old Umbre or Gravedigger specifically? You want to play into that? Does that become part of the practice schedule when you're building up that matrix of pairings, and you start thinking, okay, well, can I handle this Old Umbre? Do you start playing against like focused matchups?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's partially about trying to find what you specialize into, but I would say it's more often trying to find the weaknesses that you have or the specific things that people are trying to tech against you, because you really need to avoid that. Like, it's the WTC pairing system really, it doesn't as easily allow you to hunt down your good matchups, but it does really allow you to avoid your worst matchups if you know what they are. So trying to make sure that you understand what those are and identify them and understand why they're a problem is a really important part of that, sort of trying to make sure you've played against everything. So, and as a player within the team, not only just within sort of Paddington, but also within all of like the across the wider Team England as well, it's important to share that knowledge. Like, me and the other players playing Chimera, so that'd be Dean Booth, and then later on as well, Chris Dacre. We would have side conversations about, okay, how do we feel like about this against Chimera? Like, are we strong into this? Are we weak into this? About the different players' lists. This is a thing to be worried about. Later on, for example, one of the ones that we spotted quite late was the Helith and the Phantasm, for example. That's a really, really good anti-Trichimeric counter that we spotted late on. I think we had Ben Robinson top playing one of them in the team, but it was tech slightly differently for a number of other people. Most people only sort of ran one Phantasm, I think, with Ben was running two. And we ran a couple of practice games using some of the other folks' lists once the lists went live, and then found out, this is actually a really big problem. So we need to make sure that we have identified that and avoid it in the pairing system, for example.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that leads on to a really great question about the pairing system. I'm sure some people have played team events before, but the way the WTC does their pairing system really does change, I think, how you approach different matchups. And Chris, do you want to quickly run through how you pair against another country at the WTC?
Without going into too many intricacies and how do I put it, insider secrets, there's a lot of kind of understanding kind of drop rates and kind of like team psychology and how people want to avoid certain things. And obviously where to protect and where to attack, and understanding where kind of drops, because obviously each round you've got somebody will get 3 pairings and somebody will get 3 table choices. WTC terrain is very typically quite polarizing. So, for example, this year we had 2 very obstruction heavy tables. So we're talking anywhere from about 5. I think some tables had 7 or 8 obstructions on of varying sizes, whereas some were kind of 5 forests and 3 linear obstructions, which was, as you probably saw on the stream, is kind of, and that's good because you want the table choices to matter, and really understanding kind of what your players want and kind of what matchups and what kind of terrain that they want, and getting all that understanding in one place is a real art, and it's something I feel I've got a fairly good grasp on over the 2 years I've been doing it.
I'd say you've got a pretty good resume on that now. In terms of like how you physically pair, Jamie, would you mind just explaining how like the actual process happens?
Sure. So I always tend to find it's easier with a visual aid. I don't have one to hand, so I'm just going to use my hands. But just like let's say this is Team A and this is Team B. So you start off with the Team A puts a player out first in this particular example. So they pick one of their players to go out first, and they're now on the table. They're going to have to play a game. They're exposed. The opponent's team can obviously have another look up their lists. They know exactly who this person is. There's no hidden information here. This other team then chooses 2 of their players to match against this person, so they know who this is. With that knowledge, they pick 2 people. These are the people that are now out on the table. Then Team A picks one of the 2 to play against, and that forms a match. And then the person of these 2 that's been picked to play against, that person gets to pick what table they play on as well.
Sure.
So this person gets to pick 1 from 2. The person that's then picked picks the table they then play on. How that basically works out through and then at the end of that, once you've done that, you've got the 1 versus 2. So they've now been taken. The person that's left is still out on the table, and you reverse the process. So this person's now out on the table. This team now puts 2 people out. They pick one, and you continue that way through until you've paired all the players up. And it basically works out that one team gets to pick 3 of the matchups, which means they get to do this process where they pick one of the 2 people 3 times. The other team gets to do it twice, and the team that gets to pick 2 of the matchups gets to pick 3 of the tables, and vice versa. So
and how is it decided? Sorry, that who puts the first open player down first?
Sure. So there's a roll off between the teams. Basically, it's kind of like a starting roll that you do at the table. So often it's the captains that do it, but we made a rule that Chris isn't allowed to the starting roll because he always lost it. So we shared the roll between us, lost it every round anyway, apart from one as well. But you do a starting roll off, and then the team gets to choose whether they want more pairings or more table choices. Most of the time, teams pick more pairings unless the tables are like particularly drastically different from each other.
Fantastic. And so, would you say it's important to have one player of your 5 that is happy to be that first player, right? You need someone that is happy to be open into matchups, or is that not so important?
I personally think it's more important that you've got a couple of generalists on your team that don't mind going down into most things. Again, not going too much into strategy. There's various different modes of doing this. So whether you want to put someone forward who kind of has a bad matchup that they want to avoid, because obviously then you've got 2 versus 1 and they're guaranteed to not get that, or if you want to get rid of somebody that's got lots of bad matchups to try and take one of the bad matchups out of the pool. There's all sorts of different ways you can go about it, and different tactics on how you feel. Generally trying to get lots of 3s or just above, slightly below, is, if you trust your players, is a good way of going about it. But again, that's down to captain/team choices.
Yeah, and I suppose there's a good point to lead on there, is that when I previously went to the Guild WTC, we had a spreadsheet, and like, you have a green, amber, red, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, right? You have your spreadsheet of this is good and bad. Did England have something similar, and was that referenced before each match, or is that too much? Am I prying too much there?
No, I am very spreadsheet hungry. The lads probably think I go OTT with it. So big shout out to Jacob on our team, who takes my very rough ideas and refines them to a 10th degree. Sorry, Jamie, I cut you off there.
No, I don't complain about something that worked. So you spreadsheet away, mate.
So obviously, yes, we had a spreadsheet. We use a system of 1 to 5, 1 being a unlosable matchup. I don't think we ever had any 1s, and 5 being unplayable, and then obviously 3 being the centre point, and I think that's quite important. We did it in increments of 0.5, and obviously that kind of stretched across. Obviously, the data that gets input is the most important thing, and each player knowing their matchups, with the exception of Silver, but we won't go into that today, where you just put Silver into whatever you want. But yeah, we use a spreadsheet, and very much digging into the detail. Each team has their own grids, and then we really drilled down on what we call gold and gold plus teams, where we kind of went a stage further, had the lists on the spreadsheet, and really dug into each minute detail. We used a strategy of kind of, just to take some of the pressure off on the day, we'd have who we'd plan to drop into each team, and kind of which 2 players we would drop if we won matchups into each individual player. Just obviously things change on the day, but having just that idea of this is what we're probably going to do just sets things going.
Sometimes things change in between each round, as it happens for 2 of our players, in fact.
Every round. Yeah.
Nice. That's a great example of just the amount of practice and the amount of effort you guys put in, right? Fantastic example. So with that all in place, you've got England Paddington, you've done your practice, you've got this fantastic spreadsheet. Prior to the event, how were you guys feeling? What internally did you say we would be happy with X, Y, Z? You know, what would be a failure? What were your general mindset going into the event?
You want to take this one, Jamie?
That's fine. So we finished with a 4 wins and 1 loss result last year. The 1 loss came in the first round. We were matched against Sweden Asgard, the defending champions, and felt as a bit of a harsh draw in the first round. Took them to the wire, though. We we only lost that one 3-2. And it obviously takes, for those who don't know, it takes 3 wins out of 5 to win a round at WTC. So we really wanted to aim high, and you want to try and get yourself in that 4 wins bracket. And it's obviously only one team can walk away with the five wins and taking the event. So we always wanted to put ourselves in and about in contention, and then you have to just kind of hope you get a little bit of the luck that you need on the weekend for it to go further. You've got all of your practice and preparation in place is sort of putting you in a position to benefit from being a little bit lucky that you need to win an event. And we just put in every single little bit of practice and prep and conversation and theory, and intel that we could find, and throw it all at it. So we were hoping for being in that undefeated bracket in the day one, which is, I think there was 4 teams left at that point, and then at that point you just kind of taking each round as it comes, hoping to see how far you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Think great answer. And then so I'm not gonna ask you, how did round 1, 2, 3 go? But I'll spoil. As everyone knows, you've won it. So obviously, end of round 1, end of day 1. Sorry, you were 3-0. Were there any certain matchups or certain rounds that stuck out after round 1, day 1? Sorry, that had you on the edge? You think?
Well, we almost went out round 1. So we had a match against Sweden, Sweden 2. I think it worked out as Sweden Fenris. And we had fairly good grids into them. It was a double Umbre team, and they played really well. And they managed to get 2 assassinations, which were arguably fairly long odds or misunderstandings of a couple of our players of kind of what 1 or 2 things did. And it basically ended up being 2-2. And I see myself as a decider. Any of them could have been considered a decider, but I finished my game with a minute left on my clock, which is typical boom things, but that could have gone either way. We could have been out again round 1. And obviously we played an American team and the Canadians on that day, so there was no easy game at all, especially the Canadians, where you've got the likes of Corey Doyle and Mark and his name. All the lads are really, really strong on that team, and the team really just pulled through and managed to get those important wins. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think, like I say, there's never an easy game at a WTC, right? Everyone that has been selected has a base level of competency, and there's no easy freebies, generally. So, fantastic end of day 1. You're 3-0. I think it's worth saying also that England have never got to a final, let alone won. So I imagine that's playing on your minds. End of day 1, what were the vibes in the camp? Was it go back to a room and study for the night? Did you have some fun, or was it a mix of the two?
So the decision this year was that they were releasing the pairings the night before. So we knew that we were playing into the US about 10:30
PM.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. PM.
I believe. Does that sound right, Jamie?
Ish. Yeah, it was late at night. I can't remember the exact time, but yeah, we knew we were going to be playing USA Condor the following morning. So we were, and the thing is that we'd been told the pairings were going to be released, so we were waiting for them to come out. So there's an on-site bar that was really lovely to hang around in. It's a good place to go and relax and chill out. So we did a little bit of that. When the pairings came up, we went, right, let's go and have a conversation about this.
Sure. So there wasn't a whole night of study, but there was a group discussion about the lists and what you would like to pair into, not pair into, etc. Cool. So let's go into round 4 with a bit more depth. This is on the stream. You guys, and I'm sure it had me and a lot of the UK and the world, I'm sure, on tenterhooks, as following along every dice roll. So this was a pretty close one. How should we do it? Matt, we'll do Chris. We'll go with, how did you feel post pairing? You've got the players lined up. How did you feel before the game started?
So the USA were very much in the frame as one of our kind of top, who we thought were major contenders. There were 5-6, but if we were to rank them, we would put them in the top 2, maybe 3 of who we were concerned about. Our grids looked reasonably decent into them, and going through the pairing process, obviously they're all top players, and our grids do not reflect player skill. It is purely on lists, because from my perspective, you've got to back yourself into these games. And from the first drop and how the pairings worked out, how it ended up being, we felt quite positive coming out of the pairing process. According to our grids, that we had done pretty well coming out of it. Obviously, it's not a case of we won at the pairing process, but we felt we had a very good chance going into it.
Sure, that makes sense. That makes sense. So maybe, Jamie, you can do a little deep dive onto your round 4 game, how it went, how it ended. How did you feel about it?
Oh, the first thing there was I was one of the last players to be paired that round, along with Jacob, and we were a little bit surprised, but surprised for us in a positive way, because we thought how they were going to pair us up was Jacob was going to get paired into the Infernals, and that I was going to get paired into the Sea Raiders, and that would have been a really hard matchup for Jacob for the Infernals, but it would have been like a reasonably fair game for me for the Sea Raiders. And as it was, they did it in reverse. They gave me the Infernals and they gave Jacob the Sea Raiders. At this point, we're quite surprised about that, but the reason why we were kind of happier about that is because that in that particular USA Infernals list, because I'm pretty sure it was running 2 different teams. It was running Condor and it's run either very similar or exactly the same in Bison as well, where they run very, very infantry heavy. It's very different to how Jilva plays Infernals over here, and some of the European Infernals lists. So this is one of the lists that we needed to have an understanding of, because it's different to us, and we had sort of played against it in practice rounds, and we'd determined that my Kyrax list is actually quite a good drop into that American-style Infernals list. And we didn't know if the Americans had kind of known that, had been studying our list as well. You have to make your own judgments on pairings based on what you know. You can't try and assume what your opponent knows. So I guess the best you can do is assume they know the same thing you do. But it worked out well for us, because it gave Jacob a playable game as opposed to one that we thought was going to be really difficult for him, not impossible. And then I ended up playing the game against Justin Du, wonderful opponent. And in fact, all the Americans were really. They were great opponents. Very clean play, very polite, very entertaining to play with as well. Honestly, just great people. I'd love to play more games with them if we got the chance to do so. But as it was, I was put in a really good position to be able to leverage exactly what was useful about my Kyrax list against that Infernals list. And the short version of that is that one of the elements they hadn't seen coming is there's a lot of high defense infantry in Chimera. Now, normally these are relatively hittable for Infernals because they've got a lot of Mat 7, a lot of boostable attacks. But when you start dropping Execration of Blackest Night on top of that, upping all those defenses to about 15 or 16, and a lot of the Infernals infantry heavy lists haven't got as many ways of boosting their hit rolls because they haven't got as many horrors on the table. They haven't got the Colossals, they haven't got the Nostillas, etc. that the Silver's using. Then it becomes a real problem for them, and that's basically what happened. Is it kind of became this sort of death skew meat grinder that Justin just couldn't get himself out of, because he'd got stuck onto the scenario where he couldn't retreat. Otherwise, I'd just take the scenario win. And that's the kind of just the short version of how that game sort of went.
Yeah, and I remember also the way the stream covering, because obviously, when I'm watching it, Neural Table's not on the stream the whole time. So, it was quite back and forward. They cut. Obviously, you had your feet turn. It came back, and there was, just Yalatov left. And nothing else. And I was like, well, that's gone from pretty good to very good. I felt good about that one.
Yeah. It was great to see it coming off, honestly. And there were some things that definitely went my way about that game as well, like best laid plans. So there's a number of random rolls that can occur in terms of what objective gets removed. I got to have the first move advantage. I wanted to go first, etc. So a number of those elements also went my way, but it was a game that we'd sort of prepared for. So
fantastic. And Chris, tell us about your round 4 against the Americans.
Yeah, so I played Jake, or as a lot of people know as JVM. This was a very risky choice in the pairing process, because during the pairing process, we saw Jake as one of the options, and me taking Jake is a gamble, but it also gave the team better matchups, and it helped even out our grids. So I decided to take him. And the gamble is best laid plans. I've played Jamie a lot with the McCoy into Shiras, and it is very, very scenario dependent. If it's a nice wide scenario and fast scenario, I can absolutely play it. And just I play it slow, or I go quick, kill all. If they're offered, I try and take out all as many extraneous pieces as I can and try and win on scenario on that front. But with best laid plans, it's very dependent on what scenario element disappears. If the 50 mil disappears, I'm in a relatively good place because I can spread, I can go and get the caches, and I can play this game of contesting the 40 mil. And when you will have seen on the stream, there's a building which stopped the Trichimerics from dictating where it can go.
In the top
Obviously,
right, the big obstruction.
Yeah, it was in the middle, kind of just slightly towards Jake, on the right towards the 40s. And it meant that I could kind of hover around and kind of pin it in place with 2 jacks, because 1 jack doesn't kill a Trichimerics, but if I can get 2 in with Silence of Death, there is a chance. And obviously, with such a low model count list, you can't afford to kind of take that risk. So that was my plan. And basically, that matchup requires me on kind of eking out every point that I can. And basically, on my turn 2, because I chose to go first, I won the roll-off and chose to go first, which again is a massive thing for Gravediggers. If you're going to eat up some more of that space and put Shirus under pressure and put some of the external pressures, that means that you really can pen them in. And my top of 2, I made a choice of contesting my 40 mil with the Black 13th under duck and cover, which obviously puts them against Def 19 against guns, which Shirus doesn't really want anything to do with if she can avoid it, especially with the guns that are floating around with Rangers, because if she gets too excited, she's going to die. And the way I placed them meant that the Incarnate Knights have to walk in and hit 8 to get it. And this is me bearing in mind that my next plan is to score as many points on my turn, top of 3, to put Jake under pressure. And that 1 point makes a huge difference. I know it sounds mad, but next turn I score by 40, my own flag, my cash, and Jake's flag. So I completely collapse the left-hand side of the field and pin Shirus in. And I go up by, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4 points. But because Jake managed to get those 2 8s, the level of points ended up swinging at the point too early. So I couldn't take it to turn 7. And Jake, as every good Shirus player does, she just starts grinding through the list, and it didn't get to a point where the time or the turn counter could clock out. But in all things considered, it played well. Jake's an amazing opponent. Like, he's one of the best players in the world. Lovely guy, lovely clean game, as you probably saw. So yeah, it was a really good game, but unfortunately I lost.
Fantastic. So that makes us, not fantastic you lost, sorry, but great description. That makes us 1-1. And I think Matt in this round, he took a loss, I believe, in this round.
Yeah, Matt played impeccably well in that game. He was doing well. And then I think Jamie might correct me here. He made a slight mistake, and which basically meant that Calder got killed. Is my understanding.
It was Huxley.
Yeah, I think this one was Huxley.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, so he played Kythos, didn't he? He played against Kythos with Huxley, and basically what he was doing quite well to sort of sandpaper and shave the front elements of the Kythos list off, but two mistakes happened. So one is that he'd lost track of Selexis Xiphus for the befuddle, and he had only realised where Xiphus was after he'd moved the general, and he was within befuddle range. So he's already activated the general, and he can't sort of go back to then move him again. He just he notices it, and then he, as Golly just said, he's just like, "Oh, there's nothing I can do right now. I'm just going to continue on and hope he doesn't notice it." Which, of course, he did. He's a great player that he was playing against, and so the general goes down quite early. It's not it's bad, but it's not catastrophic for him. He can still win the game. He's still got a lot of tools on the table. The second problem was that on a turn he went for big attrition to remove a lot of bodies from the table. He I don't know if I've not seen this bit on the video, but I don't know if he did it accidentally or intentionally. But either way, he basically ended up killing one model out of a unit of Mechanothralls, which triggered the vengeance on them, which allowed them to get into a 0 Camp Huxley. With all the the Crix buffs ended up just killing Huxley. So otherwise, was in a really good position in the game. He'd taken a lot of models off and was doing quite well, but 2 key mistakes there cost him the game, basically. That's how Golly tells it anyway.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to watch on stream again because, he was up on scenario. It looked really good for him. It cuts away. It goes back to the table. The score, the scenario score says 9-4, but the game stopped. And I was like, fucking sick. 3-1 us. Get in. And then it zooms in on Huxley's damage grid and all the boxes are filled in. And I'm like,
yeah,
no. So
yeah.
So then we're at 1-2 at this point. Zilv is in a really good position, and I'm like, okay, so we're probably 2-2, and then we're on to Jacob and Horus, and this looks really close, and it's quite grindy, and the top right of the board, Horus is looking quite strong. The bottom left, Jacob's looking quite strong. And then at one point, Horus just charged the dirge in the middle of the table, killed the dirge, vanished just sort of back, and then the table cut, right? They then went to another table. So there was a 1-cap Horus quite close to Ragemonger and a Diatrol, but it cut to another table, and we come back, and there's a Horus base to base with a Diatrol, and it looks like we got it. So it's all announced, and you guys are free too. So that must have been a big relief, and it sounds like a really, really tight round for you guys.
Absolutely. Huge relief. Obviously, you probably heard Jamie screaming, or cheering on the stream on that one.
There was a point. There's a point where we'd got the Jacob results. We were 2-2, and we were waiting for Gilvers to come in. And everyone else is sort of trying to leave Gilver alone to finish his game, and I'm like stalking the table about 10 feet away, just back and forth like some kind of weird predator. And I'm like, the other Americans are like, it's okay, he's probably got it. And I'm like, I don't care, I need to see it. And I'm looking over at the thing, and Golly's like, he's fine, Jamie, he's got less than a minute. The American player does, and I'm like, no, it's not over till it's over. And I know Gilver's probably going to get it. Is Gilver? He just cranks out wins, and then the win comes in, and like I wouldn't call myself like a huge fan of football, but my dad definitely is, and he's one of those kind of people that shouts at the television when good things happen, and that part of my sort of genes came out in that moment. I remember trying to was with some of the other members of the team just waiting, and she was looking at what I was doing, and she was like, "You need to be aware, Jamie's about to express a very human emotion, just so you know it's coming."
I love that. So on the stream for Silver, this was into Sepsira, right? With I can't remember the Infernal's name. Omad, someone, the big buff dude.
Omadaba.
This was
Omadaba.
Grave Diggers, wasn't it?
Oh, no, sorry, you're right. Yeah, so he played Zathroth into the Grave Diggers. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was Grave Diggers that turn. Brandon.
So round 5 was into the Crick. Sorry.
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
so
yeah,
he's played into Grave Diggers. Luckily, I'd convinced Silver that he needed to practice into Jake's a few times before WTC.
Oh yes, this was a refused flank table, wasn't it? Where it all just went to one side. Yes, yeah. Now I remember. Yes.
So, and Silver just ground it out bit by bit until Brandon had basically nothing left. So. Yeah.
So on the stream that was really interesting because we saw the start of the game. It cut off. It come back, and what the middle had gone, and obviously Silver had his Are they swarmers? The flying guys on the side with the catches. He had them, and then you saw the Grave Diggers completely in the bottom left. So it looked really scrappy, and then there was a turn where everyone had heavies left. It cuts away, it comes back, and Jake's has got like 1 heavy left, and Silver's got like 3 horrors in his colossal. And I was like, right, Silver's done that again. Great. He's done his thing. Fantastic. So 3-2. So now you're at the precipice of what's never been done before. You're in the final, right? So I suppose even now, if you lose, which is not the preferred result, you've gone to where no team has gone before. Was there a prep talk, like a bit of give ourselves some breather before the next event? Did you take yourself out of the room, or do you just sort of stay in it and roll with it?
Well, we had lunch in between, so which was a good kind of come down and kind of breather on the way to lunch, because it was in a separate venue. So you had the exhibition hall. It's about a 5-minute walk from the hotel. and kind of that was kind of decompression time. Like we had a chat about the games and kind of decompressed, going over to lunch. We sat together for lunch, and then after that we did go up and have a discussion about kind of the next round and what we expected. We obviously had tidbits of information that we could gather from Longshanks, etc., and discussed how we're going to go into it. So the grids look good. Again, nothing to take away from the players, but just from the list, we felt positive going into the system. It was just actually going to put it into work.
Yeah, so absolutely. So it was against Germany of all the nations. You couldn't write it into the final. England against Germany. There was lots of phrases in the Twitch chat, the YouTube chat, which said don't say that until, refrain from those phrases. Jim was he wanted to say he's coming home every second of every matchup. Round five. Talk us through how you think, pairing went post you've done the process and you've got your tables and you've got your pairings.
So pairing wise, I felt it went well again. Again, not super well. Like we've won this on the pairing process, but again, was that the one where we led with you, Jamie, in the plan? Yeah. So we were very concerned to start with that the tables would have been the same as when we played the Americans, and there was one table which we didn't believe that Jamie could play on, and we were very concerned about it. But when we came back from lunch, we found that the tables had been reset. And upon having a look at it, we went back to the strategy of kind of the original strategy which we'd come up with before we come to WTC. That Jamie was the right drop. The one thing that this did lead to is that a mirror match was fairly likely, and we knew that was the case. But again, what that did was it allowed us to kind of dictate the rest of the process. A lot of people will drop a mirror, not expecting players to want to play it. And that's something we made sure we were incredibly practiced into, so we weren't scared of taking the mirror, and we backed ourselves on it. So having taken that mirror out, especially knowing that mirror was very Storm Legion focused. What Storm Legion, wasn't it, Jamie? I'm not making things up there.
Storm Legion?
That list. No, as in to play into Storm Legion. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, yes, it was. Yep.
So we wanted to avoid putting Matt into that. So it was great that we could take that element out of the pairing process, and from there we felt we had 4 okay, like either average or better matchups for the rest of the pairing process. I ended up with what I had as a very good matchup is into Old Ombre, because McCoy is quite a difficult game for Old Ombre, and then you had Zilver into Crix, which we felt very, very positive about, which we had ranked as a 2, and then we had Matt into Gravediggers there.
Yes, yeah. No, he played Robin.
Matt played into Robin, and then we had Jacob who
into Storm Legion.
Into Storm Legion, which again is one of those games which can be pretty good. And I think the results showed that the strength of the pairing process. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's games to be played. Mistakes were made in games and things like that. And in my game in particular, Sven, lovely guy, I've spoken to him about Soldier of Fortune, great guy, but he made a big mistake and that cost him the game. You could almost say that he lost rather than I won, but still, you've got to turn up onto that table and you've got to push these situations. So
and what was that mistake, Chris? Just for the viewers.
So the first he was playing a very, very cagey game, and after speaking to him earlier, when he plays against Robin plays a very aggressive McCoy style, which is quite popular, where you rush forward and you try and choke the Old Ombre player with bodies, because they've got very good high quality attacks, but they can't necessarily kind of do that as well as Beyond Scenario because they don't have the bodies. Whereas I play against Old Ombre typically quite a slower game of kind of, I will take away your trading pieces, so quicker than you can take away mine, and then you start to take bigger bodies. I made a slight mistake and ended up kind of losing a couple of bodies early, but after that my opponent made a mistake and I managed to charge Invictus and pick up Magnus with the Black 13th and 5 for effect. So what that meant is obviously 20 points were just uplifted for the game for the sake of a few points. Obviously, my opponent wasn't in a bad spot because with how old Umbre are, that assassination threat is still obscene. But what my opponent did, Sven, and he didn't half beat himself up about it afterwards, and I felt so bad for him in one sense of the word, though happy that the result went in our favour, is he charged Yana to trigger Conferred Rage. And defeated to get the overtake, so he could get 2 heavies onto McCoy via tramples and overtakes and things like that. Normal old Umbre shenanigans, let's call it. Unfortunately, when he did this, because he has to spread out to stop me from just taking over the whole board, he put his feral with rush, which was an essential part of the plan, outside of 18 inches. So what that meant was that Yana couldn't cast rush with where she was, and also the feral can't even walk and be forced to cast rush because it's more than 18.1 away. So what that meant is it took the assassination straight off the table, and at this point Yana stood in the middle of the table. Sven tried his very hardest to try and block up as much as he could, but unfortunately the Yana's on one camp stood in front. He put 3 goats near her, tried everything he could, but I had a unit of rangers, a unit of commandos, the rowdies, heavy, McCoy, all stood in front of her.
You basically had the whole of the British Army ready to shoot Yana at that point.
Exactly. So yes, I can't claim that it was some part like genius from my point of view, but there's a lot to think about, and putting that pressure on your opponent to think about these things, mistakes can crop up. So
well, I think there's two parts to that, right? You played the game to that point, which led the fella to have to make that play, and in that play that had to be correct, he made a mistake, right? And you forced him to make it. So there's something to be said for that. And that was a really interesting one to watch on stream because it was extremely cagey. You picked off the hounds, the ferals were staying just behind the obstructions. It goes away, it comes back, and you've killed Invictus. And I'm like, right, okay, this looks really good. Goes away, comes back, there's a primeval in front of McCoy, and I'm like, what's going on? It goes away, comes back, and there's Yana in the middle of the table with the British Navy surrounding her, and I'm thinking, okay, great, we've got that one, fantastic. So that's one in the bag for us. Let's jump to Jacob into Storm Legion. This one, I know he made an early mistake, which unfortunately he lost his rage heavy, which made handling the arcane shielded Maelstrom a lot harder innately. When he went in with the Great Old One under the feet, I think he lacked any crits, and the one crit he did get didn't do any damage, so he didn't get any amputation. So I think between the mistake and maybe a bit of unfortunate on that side, didn't go. It was great to hear the German player actively raging about Rainmonger's feet on the stream. That was music to my ears. Every single, after the first 3 or 4 ones, he was fully tilted, and not tilted, but every one was a comment about Rainmonger's feet, which was great. But that unfortunately was a loss for Jacob. I think after losing the rage heavy, it was really difficult to handle the Maelstrom. Then the cavalry slowly ground it out, and that was that will put us effectively at 1-1. Jamie, let's go to you. You went into the mirror, I'd say confidently. How did it end up, and how did you feel about the game?
So this one went all the way down to time, and one of the things that I was quite pleased about over the course of the WTC is that no one was able to challenge me in terms of clock pressure. I was usually the person that was up on time, and my opponents were kind of struggling for it. There's a couple of people that lost to me on death clock actually, and Kevin just played an incredibly quick game. He was playing Rassic, and he was playing like an armor stack, and he's played it a lot. I've seen him come up with that list in a number of different events, and he plays it very methodically. And I knew very quickly after the first sort of turn or two he wasn't going to give me anything. He had a very defensive list, 2 Paragons, very resilient to shooting, lots of high armor stack. He wasn't able to take Dragon's Blood because I'd had a Purgation Head on my trike, so he didn't take that. At least there was a little bit of armor chip that came off it. But I knew he wasn't going to give me anything, and he was in a little bit of a better position than me in terms of the scenario, especially because he had these two units of Incarnate Knights when he had a spinner behind them. And he just basically was just repositioning a cav model onto my objectives every turn. I'd kill it, he'd bring it back, and I knew this was going to be a problem for me if I just allowed it to continue. So I had to kind of tempt him out with a really aggressive positioning of a Wyvern, where I was like, he's gonna have maybe a coin flip chance at this Vipex. It's gonna have a go at killing it, but for him to do that, it's gonna have to give me something for him to have a go at it, and it's gonna sort of pull the game more wide open. I'd thrown a unit of Shades out the right hand side. The Shades weren't going to do anything this game at all. They just weren't. There was no character units on the table for them to have a go at. They're not going to be dangerous to Rassic. His armor's too high. So I was just purely using them for like really fast, wide contesting pieces that I knew that Kevin was going to have to do something about. And that sort of took him a couple of turns of his Incarnates and a Drakion on the far right hand side. And so he was just trying to pull this brick open basically and get him to commit to things. And he did. He went for it. He went for the Wyvern, didn't quite get it. But that really opened up the game for me. And at this point, my win condition is I have to grind him down. I wasn't going to win on scenario. He was too controlled and too sort of high pressure, and he was able to get the cash during this game as well. So I wasn't going to scenario him out. I just had to kill everything and get to a point where I could start claiming more scenario points because he didn't have the contesting models, or I got Rassic. And I just needed to do that fast. And as you sort of saw towards the end of the stream, that meant that I was having to play the last few turns really, really quickly. And I got to the point where I needed to. But there was I think that the story of that game was a little bit as well was, I'll often say this, is that sometimes if games of that sort of high standard, that it's often about the player who makes the fewer mistakes. Both me and Kevin made some mistakes during that game. I made a really bad positioning move with Belligul when I had about 4.5 minutes left. That almost gave Rassic an out to be able to sidestep into Sharis. Was maybe half an inch or so out of sidestepping into Sharis because of that positioning move. At the same time, he did another thing where he forgot to... he rolled a bit badly on a Paragon, sort of tilted a little bit, and it seemed to sort of throw his his game off him for a second, moved on to the next model, and he'd forgotten that he'd done 2 other activations and then gone, I should have done a Warpath move on the Drakion to get it into the Wyvern to get it out of the way. But he's gone 2 activations past it, so he can't go back to it. So it's a game where a couple of us both of us made a mistake here or there because the time pressure was going on, but ultimately I was able to sort of eke out at the end. And
oh man, that was one from the stream that I had no idea how it was going to go. Literally down to the last 2 minutes of the whole game. You know, like it would cut to you. You'd both be pretty even. Clock was pretty even. Scenario points are pretty even. You know, you had your trike in the sort of like the rightish top position with your Wyvern. He had his skiller behind the obstruction, and you were obviously positionally playing. And you know, it was such a tight game right down to the end. And then when it cut to you, just as you were pretty much going with your shooting for your trike when it came back to you. So, you know, you hit the first one. I was like, yes, excellent. I rolled another one. Then you hit the crit stationary, and I lost my mind. Fantastic. And then Cyrus come and finish it. So, actually epic. Yeah. And I think you did this all in I think you had 2 minutes left, and there was a minute left on your clock when you killed Rassic. So, incredible scenes.
I talk fast most of the time. Like that was me in bullet time, basically, because I just needed to get it done. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, and I was standing behind Jamie during all of this, and I'm quite characteristically kind of not quiet, but kind of reserved and kind of. But you can hear me. It sounds like crowds cheering on the stream. It's literally just me, like because nobody else had finished or was still packing up or whatever. And you just hear me bellow because we won the round at that point because we were 2-1 ahead. Jamie was away. He just kind of oh, have we won? It's like, it's just such a great feeling at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other 2 games going on, we had Matt, and I got to admit, give it to Matt. You know, very early into the game, I thought, gosh, Matt is really under the cush here. You know, the Gravediggers were doing the Gravediggers thing. Matt went for a really early sort of turn, may even be in turn 1. It was either bottom of 1 or top of 2. It was really early feet into the game. You know, he pushed up. Kruger got some bits, but you know, the Gravediggers still did their thing, and they still clipped a lot back off. And you know, he was losing more than he was gaining. and I was like, damn, that might be a loss. And as the game progresses and it cuts between the tables, the clock's going down, Matt's up on clock, he's not lost on scenario yet, he's just hanging in there, using every little model he has to hang in on there. Then it cuts back to Matt, and there's like 20 seconds left on the guy's clock, the other guy's clock. I'm like, what the fuck? And he's not lost on scenario yet. He goes to kill Calder, and he fluffs it. He has 20 seconds to try and do it right, and he wins. So credit to Matt. It's probably the best clock play I've ever seen, and also using his opponent's clock as a win con, right? Amazing, just fantastic. Yeah, that was really cool to watch.
Matt and I have played that game so many times, and Matt, you give him a handful of models with 5 minutes left, and he creates absolute miracles. And Matt knows that McCoy is so time intensive that if you can last that game, Rangers go, when the McCoy player is committed, stuff dies really, really quickly. And you can get through it regardless of the situation. But he's also very aware that clock pressure is so heavy on the McCoy player, and he will just make it your life a living hell trying to eke those points out to stay in the game. Yeah,
it was a masterclass. If anyone wants to just look at how to manage the clock and how to eke every single model you can get using it for scenario, go watch the game. It was incredible. So at that point, you're 3-1. Fucking, I was losing it at home. Amazing. Zilv's still playing. And Zilv's doing his thing. There was one point where the opponent was measuring a Sub-Zero assassination quite early in the round, and I was like, dear God, please no. But it wasn't on. Of course it wasn't. Zilv protected against it. And then, you guys, 3-1, Zilv's the last one playing. He clears up. I think it was a tough matchup for the Sub-Zero. He's got his layers of minus the damage rolls plus armor. Locked horns makes life difficult for Sub-Zero. He grabs the win, and it's fantastic on stream. You hear him get told, you guys are 4-1, and he just says, bring the vodka. That's the last thing you hear on the stream. Amazing.
The thing is, though, Zilva was saying that all weekend, so we were fairly used to it by that point.
Amazing. So just, again, congratulations to you guys. And one thing I want to say as well was, not only was it like genuinely inspirational, and that might sound quite cliche, but as a person who loves Warmachine and loves the game, your guys' level of play all weekend was just amazing. And not only that, but your guys' level of sportsmanship, the way you conducted yourself, I think it's a fantastic example to the whole community on how you can play at the highest level and still be a gentleman. So credit to you guys. It was amazing.
And I think that also goes into kind of the choices of teams. Like, I don't know whether I'll apply for captain next year or whether I'll go or whatever, or if I'd even make captain for next year. But one of my key things is you are there to represent your country. As much as you get your gameplay may be in the top 5 players of the UK, if your attitude stinks, you're not coming, because all that ends up being is you and the rest of the team are labelled as being poor sportsmen and things like that. So it's not just your ability on the table, it's kind of the reputation. WTC, I don't know if Jamie had the same experience. All the players that we played were great people, lovely people, and we all had a very positive experience. Even when people were lost, everybody was gracious in defeat. It was a really great experience in that sense, and that's not something I want to ruin by taking it. I would want to ruin by taking somebody that was going to detract from that.
I couldn't agree more with that, basically. Chris, I wouldn't going to add more to it because Chris has said it all perfectly.
Fantastic. And you're not here at Steam Force Game, Jamie, today, so that's great. But just one thing from, again, I think the community, not necessarily in England, but as a Warmachine community, it's so cool to see a developer of the game playing at the highest level, right? That is so cool. And I think I speak for the whole community to say it's really, really fantastic to see that, right? And kudos to you to have the brain power to develop the game and play it. I can barely do one of them. So excellent. So fantastic. Congrats you guys again. The whole of the UK lost it on Discord when you guys won, and I'm sure you sort of followed that along when you finished playing. Were you guys sort of like aware of how much support you were getting during the games? I feel like genuinely the whole of the UK was behind you for that final game.
Yeah, I was making sure they all knew. Like, I wanted to let everybody know that we had the support at home. People were cheering on. It was important that we didn't let people's heads go down. I mean, you look at the win rates. Like, obviously, Jamie and Zilver went 5-0, and I went 3-2. Golly and Jacob went 2-3. 2-3. But that doesn't tell the full story. Like, those two played impeccable games and won key matchups where if they didn't win those, we wouldn't have gone through. And in a different world, it could have just been the opposite way. Matt could have won 4-5, Jacob could have won 4 or 5, and Jamie and Zil could have won 3 and 2. And like, I'm not taking anything from Jamie and Matt, but with how the pairing process goes, it can all make that difference. And that everybody played out of their skin that weekend. Yes, some things didn't go our way, but it was everybody played impeccably. I'm proud of them all, genuinely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth giving a big shout out to Team England, not 2 and 3, but King's Cross and Excaliburs, right? They also had a fantastic showing. They represented the country beautifully. So, you know, praise to all of you, right? You went out there, you did a fantastic job. We were all behind you. It's sick to see. Shout out to Shiner, 16th member of Team England. She's awesome. Credit to her. So that's 2025 wrapped up. Your champions. Amazing. Just if people have listened to this or watched WTC and have been inspired, what does the general process look like going forward now to WTC 2026, which is going to be in Warsaw, Poland in October, the 10th and 11th, I believe. What's the process of going for that going forward?
So the next thing to happen is, again, the committee will be looking to either add members or be reselected. What I will say is I encourage all the committee members that are currently on. They've done an excellent job this year, and I really want to thank them for everything they did. They've really kind of helped progress and pull things through, take a lot of the administrative stress off me, which I felt was very much on the year before, and I've been to the committee before. And that allowed me to focus on the team, and a great job. But they will definitely be looking to add members in or swap members out, and I think that's good and healthy for the committee. That will happen fairly soon. I imagine there'll be a post going out, so watch out for that if anybody wants to be a part of the committee. It's a great opportunity. Just please make sure that you're willing to kind of, it's a year's process. It's not just picking captains. So just don't think it's that, because and I think that's an important part of the team, and you are included in being part of the team as well. You are asked your opinions on the matter. You get involved with shirt design, and this year I would like to think, if I'm not part of the upper echelons of the situation this year, that they get even more involved this year. Come to the singles, come be part of the experience. And then my understanding at the moment is we will probably be looking to do captains shortly after that. And then teams will, obviously, January update is always a big shake-up of the meta and understanding kind of where things are. There's obviously faction purists, and if things don't come out quite out how they expect, and maybe they're not falling quite right in the meta, that we need to be able to see that and see how people are adapting. And it's going to be a great experience for the captains to have a look at that, to see how people are kind of reacting to the January update and see how they progress. And then obviously there will be a date at some point, first 3 months of the year, where I imagine player selection will be completed and ready to kind of put that 6 to 8 months into till October.
Fantastic. And I imagine it's safe to say that if you're on the UK Warmachine Discord, anything you need to know in terms of, where you can apply as a player or to the committee or whatever, you'll probably be alerted in the Discord somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. And I would encourage everybody, if you're unsure, apply. We try and speak to every person who's applied about their application. Obviously, if you're successful, that's great. It doesn't need to be much conversation about that, because that'll happen over the months. But as well, we try and talk to players in kind of where they missed out and how close they were to the application. Well, at least we did this year. I imagine that's going to continue because that's gone well. And reach out to the captains, committee members to speak to them. My Discord, Facebook is always open. Please open up, have a chat with me. understand where you are. Aaron, I know you've chatted to me about kind of the process and how it's going to work. Do that. You need to be seen and known about to be on the team. And I'm not saying that you have to be on War Table every week or anything like that, but you need to be talking to the captains and understanding kind of their expectations and kind of what they want to do and chat. We're all geeks. We all want to talk Warmachine, and we all want to kind of raise the meta. The UK meta is incredibly strong, and we want to continue that. And these processes really help progress that and progress us all as stronger and better players and a nicer community as well.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. And a quick one to you, Jamie. Obviously, I think it's fair to say you're probably one of the best players in the world, you know. So as someone who maybe wants to aspire to get better, you know, and say they're coming from a casual place, or, you know, they basically want to take that next step into, I play Warmachine, I would like to now try and get better at the game. What would you recommend someone that's trying to make the next step into that sort of arena of, I'd like to go and compete? What good practices could they get used to?
I think playing with good players makes you a good player. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. If someone's looking to try to improve their game, it's good to try and get out in touch with those good players. So it's kind of sort of dovetailing off the back of what Chris was talking about, which is get to know these people, understand the players in your local area, and if there aren't players in the local area, go and talk about on the Warmachine Discord. Try and find out the players who play your faction. We've got, you know, faction sections or army sections of the UK Discord. They're same on the other fan Discords as well, and the official SFG Discord now as well. And they're going to find those players who are knowledgeable about the faction that you play, and find out what kind of things those people are running, how they're doing things differently, you know, how you can do things differently to how you are doing if you're not being as successful as you want to be. And also try and find some take some inspiration from people who you want to be like. And that's not just in terms of I want to be as successful as that person, but it's in terms of I want to act like that person, in the sense that this is someone who plays a clean game, who is well respected because they're a good, you know, active member of the community. You know, they're getting involved in competitions, they're running their own sometimes as well. Like I learned a lot about you know, a lot about Warmachine tournaments, not only from participating in them, but from running them for myself as well, and understanding that perspective, what it's like to be a TO, and to see good players playing clean, you know, positive, friendly games at high levels, and understanding how they do that, and, you know, good ways of communicating with people too. So I think this is a really good bit of the WTC actually that wasn't recorded, I don't think, or if someone's got a recording of that sort of opening ceremony, I'd sort of encourage them to share it. But there was a good introduction from Seth Cohen, who is the head judge at the WTC, and he spent a good couple of minutes talking about how good communication with your opponent at the table will solve 80% of rules questions and disagreements and problems. And he's right, it's absolutely correct. Just having clear and open communication with the person you're playing with, statements of intent, will solve most things. I am trying to move this model here. My intention is to be in or out of X distance from this other model. And just talking about that with your opponent, because then you won't get that situation next turn where they think they're in on an assassination that you know they're not, because you've checked all this stuff. But if you say it to the opponent, I'm confirming with you that this is 13 inches more than away from this model. Do you agree? Yes, excellent. I'm moving on then, because we now know this is an understood game state. And it will just... Will make everything more friendly and more open and more welcoming to both players.
Fantastic. Yeah. No, thank you, Jay. That's a great answer. And for myself, I was fortunate enough to go to the 2018 Guild Ball WTC. I would absolutely recommend it to everyone. It's just a fantastic weekend. Just, you know, come get involved. Come on the Discord. Come speak to Chris and the guys on the Discord. And, you know, like Chris said, we all want to talk about Warmachine. We're all extremely nerdy. Come get involved. Everyone's welcome, right? I think we'll probably wrap up there. It's been fantastic to talk to you both. I'm really, truly grateful for your time. Let's fucking go. We won it. Let's go again. Amazing. Well done, guys. Truly, truly awesome. And hopefully, you know, England can come back next year, retain it, you know, and do just as well. So to everyone watching, thank you if you got this far to the video. Thanks for your time, Chris. Thanks for your time, Jamie. And I'll see you in the next video very soon.